things that excited me the most were things that were technically complex. But as soon as I started working on my own ideas, I realized that there's this whole other aspect of building products.
Rahul SonWalkar has scaled his tech startup Julius AI to 1 million users within the first year. His work has been so impactful that Harvard Business School now teaches analysis to their MBA students using Julius.
How did you feel in the first few weeks creating your 9 to 5 job?
First few days were really exciting. You can basically wake up and work on anything you want. Within a few days, it was clear that the pressure of not knowing what's the most important thing to work on is massive. I have these 15 options in front of me. Am I doing the right thing?
You had a lot of ideas, you tried them out.
I built and launched a prototype, did a bunch of cold calling, and what I realized was two things.
You have a very interesting hiring philosophy, and I quote, 2 out of our 4 first hires are interns who dropped out to join us full-time.
Talk to their parents, and they think we're crazy.
Julius grew very fast. How did you do?
I really wonder, what was I doing with my free time before Julius? I barely hang out with my friends that I used to hang out with 2 years ago. It feels like pushing a rock up a hill. So far has been really useful, is building a product that people use and share.
Is data science still a field that's worth getting into?
I don't think it will be replaced by AI. We have actually seen evidence of this because
What is up, and welcome to The Time I Left My 9 to 5, a podcast where we dive deep into the stories of people who took the leap, left behind stability, and built something of their own. Today's guest is someone I've wanted to speak to for a very long time. Rahul SonWalkar is the founder and CEO of Julius AI. His journey from big tech to entrepreneurship is one that I knew I had to capture, so on my trip to San Francisco, I made sure to pin him down for this conversation. And for good reason. Every 24 hours, Julius writes and executes 2 million lines of Python code. Over 8 million data visualizations have been created on the platform, helping users make sense of their data, whether they come from a coding background or not. It's impressive to see what he's built in such a short amount of time, especially at just 24 years old. Rahul walked away from a high-paying job in big tech with great career outlook to pursue his own vision. His leap of faith came from a struggle that many software engineers in big tech can probably relate to, the feeling of not making a real impact. We talked about the uncertainty after quitting and the overwhelming number of directions you could take once you're quote-unquote free. But more importantly, we dived into the realities of launching a startup, covering questions like, how do you know which idea is worth pursuing? How do you validate a market? And how do you balance what excites you as a founder with what users actually need? We also got into the realities of scaling a business, hiring the right people, and building a support system for different seasons of your life. Because let's be honest, no founder does it alone. I am personally so excited for you to listen to this episode. Rahul and I actually became good friends after filming this episode, and I can confidently say that every single conversation that we've had since has left me feeling inspired. So if you're thinking about starting your own business and trying to figure out which idea to put your efforts behind, this episode is a must listen. But before we dive into it, I would be so grateful if you could subscribe to the channel. As you know, I'm in the early days of growing this podcast, and I'm really passionate about bringing these conversations to you. Your likes, comments, and ratings truly make a difference and help bring this vision to life.
Hi, Rahul. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I am really excited to have you, not only because of your incredible journey that we can all learn something from, but also the product that you're building right now, Julius AI. Being a data scientist myself, just wondering how AI will have an impact on the data science industry in general. So thank you so much for joining me today.
thank you for having me, Maggie.
I ask everyone at the beginning of the episode, on a scale from 0 to 10, how much do you regret creating your 9 to 5 job? 0 being not regret at all, best decision of your life, and 10 being completely regretting it.
0, maybe like -5. I wish I did it sooner.
Okay. Let's start the conversation then at the turning point in your career when you quit your last 9 to 5. And that was your job as a software engineer at Uber. Is that right?
That's correct.
Was it a difficult choice?
It was, I grew pretty frustrated of the role I was in because I grew up watching movies like The Social Network and seeing how you could build things that are used by billions of people. That's the whole reason why I wanted to be in San Francisco and in technology so that we could build useful things and put it into hands of millions and billions of people. And I went to college. After college, I ended up working at companies like Facebook and Uber, two companies I really looked up to. And then when I got to those companies, I realized that I wasn't able to make the impact. In fact, I wasn't shipping exciting stuff that changed people's lives or touched millions and billions of people. I was actually working under a very bureaucratic system. So I basically, after work, was just spending all my time building projects. And one of my projects was this app for podcasts to just gather comments that people can leave on the podcast episode across different platforms and share with each other. Probably a very bad idea, but I just had all these ideas I wanted to build. And there was a point in time, 1 or 2 years after out of college, where I just decided to just make the plunge and go full time on working on my own startup ideas. And as soon as I did it, it was really scary. But within months, it was clear that I should have done it sooner. I shouldn't have dragged it out for that long.
Okay, there's so many good points in here that I want to touch on. First of all, you mentioned you didn't feel like you were making a big enough impact. I find that really interesting because when I quit my job, my reason was the same. I wasn't making the impact that I wanted to make. And I was actually working at a startup. And at a startup, I felt like it was more in the constant change of directions and being working on like a research team. I like to compare it to Google Brain, where a lot of the products get trashed before they even hit the market. So that's where I came from. You having worked at big companies, did you feel like a cog in the machine in a sense?
Absolutely. Some of the ideas that you have about the product, about the business, all it takes is one no, and the idea can get shelved or your project can get canceled. And what's different about startups is all you need is one yes. So at a big company, one no can really crush your dreams. In startups, you can get 50 no's. As long as you get one yes, that's all that matters, right? When you're trying to get your first users, there could be 50 users who will tell you they are not excited about what you're building. But you just have to keep talking, keep building. And then the moment you find your first user, that's like a moment where you finally realize you're building something that at least one person cares about. At a big company, you have to get a yes from your manager, your manager's manager, your manager's manager's manager, your cross-functional teams manager. You need all these yeses, and even one no can stop you in your tracks. But I found that working on my own ideas was way more exciting because all I needed was one yes.
I couldn't agree more. There's also that distance from the customer. If you are at your own startup, you are customer facing in a sense, whereas for most coding positions, software engineers, data scientists, there are so many layers between the technical people and the customers.
Absolutely. All my experience up until that point was just coding and programming. And the things that excited me the most were things that were technically complex and that were technically challenging. But as soon as I started working on my own ideas, I realized that there's this whole other aspect of building products where you have to first talk to users, or to understand what are their pain points. And oftentimes your users won't care how technically complicated your project is. All they care about is it useful for them? And it doesn't matter how you implement it. You can implement it really, really sophisticated code, or you can implement it very simply. As long as it solves the user's problem, that's all that matters. So after the plunge, I think I became a more well-rounded individual where I was able to go out there and meet people, understand what their needs are and why they should use what we're building, fail a bunch of times, and then iterate and do some sales, do some marketing, do some recruiting. And oftentimes you get no's, but all those no's make you better. And those were the things I was never really getting better at as just an engineer that was doing 9 to 5 on a very narrow project and having all these layers between me and the end user that was using and paying for the products I was building.
Yeah. So how did you feel in the first few weeks? Was it all good? Did you have second thoughts?
Yeah, great question. The first few days were really exciting because you feel the freedom and you can basically wake up and work on anything you want. And just having that freedom is incredible. But within a few days, it was clear that the pressure of not knowing what's the most important thing to work on is massive. When you're working on by yourself or with your friends, you realize that you could, if you pick the wrong direction to go in, you can end up spending months or even years sometimes digging in the wrong direction before you course correct. And those mistakes can be really, really expensive. So then all of a sudden the vibe shifts from massive amounts of freedom to like, am I doing the right thing? I have these 15 options in front of me and I don't have a boss. I am my own boss. But that also means that I have to decide which of these 15 options is worth spending the most time on. And also, you start doing everything by yourself. Like you were saying while we were setting up for the podcast, that you do your own video editing, outreach, research, interviews. You're just a full stack person now. Besides just having your expertise in data science, you're also learning all these different skills. You have to, because if not you, who else would do it? Similar for me was startups. I write the code, talk to users, launch the product, do customer support, do some marketing, and synthesize all the information to decide what are the next steps of actions you need to take.
I think I faced a similar challenge where all of a sudden you have all these things that you can do. So how did you decide to go all in on Julius? I think there was a gap also when you left your job and when you started Julius.
Yeah, I will explain the gap on my resume. I basically spent a year and a half building and launching different prototypes. So the very first idea I had was actually in trucking. So I was at Uber and I noticed that you book an Uber ride and you can see on the app where your car is. You can see the ETA, you can see how the car is moving. All of that doesn't exist for logistics. And that makes logistics really, really complicated, right? You have these truck drivers that get phone calls asking them when they will be at the delivery or pickup. And the whole coordination happens over phone calls. The first idea was, can we build an Uber like mapping and routing and visibility system for logistics? And I spent several months on it. I built and launched a prototype, did a bunch of cold calling. And what I realized was two things. One is this is a real problem. The logistics companies, they were dying to use this thing. Second thing I learned is it's nearly impossible to convince like a 60-year-old truck driver to share their location real time 24/7. They're just not going to do it. They would rather answer like 5, 6, 7 phone calls a day than like share their location real time through their phone. So I couldn't close both of those pieces. However, this was also the time where I was just spending all my free time in the evenings and on the weekends playing with GPT-3. And the model was just so exciting. You could build all these cool things with it, build like a little chat bot, you can build a little application. And I was just obsessed with this thing. This was my new toy. So I spent my evenings and weekends playing with GPT-3. And after a few months, I had this like moment of clarity where I'm spending every single minute of my free time playing with this model. And then I'm struggling to get this trucking thing to a lot of users. And that's when it struck to me that I should actually be building something that I'm really excited about and obsessed with. And I'm spending every single waking minute playing with. And I dropped what I was doing and started building applications with GPT-3. And we built a lot of different things. Again, same routine, build something, launch it, see if users use it. And this time around, it was more fun because I was obsessed with this new technology. And the technology was improving as well. You had GPT 3.5, you had Claude 2, 2.0, and then you had GPT 4 right after that. With each new generation of this technology, more and more use cases would get unlocked. It was about 5 or 6 months after that is when we built and launched Julius.
Awesome. One of the questions that I think a lot of people in your shoes, a lot of the listeners will have is, when do you know it's time to pivot? So like you said, you had a lot of ideas, you tried them out. How did you know if it was just not going to work out at this point in time for you versus just keep trying?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing before you pivot is to launch. Oftentimes we have this perfectionist in us. We want to get everything right. We want to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and the product should be polished. And that's when you launch. I think a lot of times people pivot before launching. And I think if you're going to pivot, you might as well launch and see how it goes. So, number one thing is never pivot before launching the thing that you were currently working on. Number two is you need to have some initial insight that you're digging deeper on, and you may pivot the representation or the application of the insight, but you need to have some core idea that you're digging deeper on. Because if you don't do that, your learnings from each pivot will not compound. So let's say you're building a chatbot for content creators and you launch it and it doesn't get as many users. Do you pivot and do a chatbot for old people or non-English learners? All those are different kinds of users and different applications, and your learnings from the first launch won't compound. So I found that having like an initial insight and launching and then pivoting to do a different representation of the insight is what allowed us to compound our learnings. So we tried first time, launched, didn't get users, tried again, launched, didn't get users, and then do a few more times and you get users. And then it becomes very clear.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about Julius AI and your journey right now. When did you realize you couldn't build Julius AI by yourself, that you needed a team?
I live in San Francisco, and San Francisco back in 2022, 2023 was going through this renaissance period where a lot of the people who were young and excited about this new technology were just moving to San Francisco and meeting each other. And along the way, I met people who were just as excited about what I was working on, and they wanted to join the company and work together. So we raised a little bit of money so that we could hire these people. And overall, we never really spent time recruiting or hiring. It's that we found people who thought like us along the way and they came and joined the company.
How did you find those people? Did you go to meetup events? Did they just end up in your LinkedIn inbox?
Part of it was, talking on Twitter about what I'm building, and then people who think similarly or want to work on similar things reach out. To Twitter is great. Second was hackathons. So, some of the people on our team, we've met them at hackathon building AI projects. And we just met there and we kept in touch. And then over months, they joined us full time.
That's awesome. You have also a very interesting hiring philosophy in a sense, and I quote, 2 out of our 4 first hires are interns who dropped out to join us full time. Can you tell us a little bit more about those interns, how you feel about them dropping out to join you?
It's a bit exciting, but also like I feel the weight of the responsibility where, man, this person is going to forego the rest of their college to move to San Francisco, come work with us full time. We really need to make Julius a success. Sometimes I talk to their parents and they think we're crazy that we got their kid and we convinced their kid to drop out of college and come work with us full time. When people intern with us, usually they have so much fun working on hard problems that college is just not as exciting for learning or for being around other smart people. It was never really like a pitch for us that, hey, we're going to go hire interns and then convince them to drop out of college. It was that we found some of the smartest people who could work on the AI applications with us were college kids. And we met them through Twitter, online, and then they did internships with us and they had such a fun time building cool things and useful things that they wanted to just like not go back to school.
So Julius grew very fast, both in terms of, I think, your first hires and your user base. You were able to grow it from 0 to 500,000 in just over a year, which is very impressive. Congratulations. How did you do it?
We just crossed 1 million users.
God, congrats.
So official announcement, I guess. It sort of feels like pushing a rock up a hill where, you spend over a year building and launching different projects, figuring out where the user problems are. And then soon, like the moment of clarity hits where you realize that, okay, this is a problem. This is what we can build to solve that problem. And from that point on, it's like just purely execution where you talk to users, you build features, you launch them, and then you delight your users. As long as you're delivering something that's really useful and intuitive for them, they will start using the thing, telling their friends about it, telling their classmates about it, telling their colleagues about it, and spreading the word. And that so far has been really, really useful is building a product that people use and share. One of the things about data is when you analyze data and you visualize it or you have some insight, that insight is inherently shareable, right? You want to share the insight with a colleague, a classmate, or a friend. And we have people use us for like even sports analysis, and they want to take those insights on how the quarterback is going to do this weekend and share with their friends. And people are now able to do this data science and data analysis with natural language in Julius, and those insights become shareable. Those visualizations become shareable, and that helps a lot with word of mouth and growth. And then we also have seen that sometimes there's just like pre-existing network effects where there's a professor at Rice University. He's been a Julius paid user for over a year, and last spring he reached out to us and said, "Hey guys, my name is Carrie. I've been a paid user of Julius for 6-7 months now, and I teach a class on AI assisted financial analysis for MBA students, and I'm going to use Julius to teach the whole class." And that was the first professor who used Julius to teach a whole class where pretty much every single slide in the class is just like how you prompt Julius. And that was so fascinating for us. The moment that happened, the word got around in the academic community. A lot of professors realized that while many AI tools are not as useful for students because they're used for cheating and stuff, Julius is actually useful because you're learning a skill, like analyzing data, visualizing it. That's going to be really useful, whether you go in finance, sales, marketing, even data science. They want their students to learn those skills and be better equipped for the real world. So they started teaching classes with Julius, and those like micro networks grew really fast. But and then there's been some effort that we've put in to make sure that now that we have this user community, we, share exciting updates with them. We keep shipping products. One thing we make sure to do is ship a feature a week. So every week around Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, we send an email out to all our users where we talk about what we've shipped this week for the users. And that shows the users that we're actively improving and innovating on the product. This is the AI product that you're going to get the most value out of. And then also we sometimes send them merch like t-shirts or water bottles or mugs just to thank the community and spread the word and spread the love.
Which department was this professor from?
He was in finance and econ.
Finance and econ.
He's a tenured professor in finance and econ.
So would you say the target user is people who don't necessarily want to code to find out the answer from data?
So exactly. Well, it's, finance, sales, marketing, operations. A lot of it is also scientific research. So in general, we think that English is going to become a widely used programming language where, you will be able to explain your what you want the AI to do, and then the AI helps you write the code, and then you can verify the code and then run the code, and the AI autonomously like does the task for you while you supervise it. So, we have folks at a anti-aging research institute just an hour north of here. All of them use Julius for their statistical analysis. And it's really meaningful to see, users like that. Even if we can advance anti-aging research by like 0.0001%, I think that's like a very positive cause. But then there's also, folks in finance that have a bunch of Excel files or like quantitative financial data that they want to analyze, get insights from. Um, there's some folks in like sales and marketing that have a lot of data from sales and marketing campaigns. They want to analyze it, visualize it, and Julius helps them do that.
One thing I haven't heard from the professions is data scientist or data analyst. I've gotten a lot of questions from just people on Instagram wondering, is data science still a field that's worth getting into? Will us be replaced by AI? What's your take on that?
I don't think it will be replaced by AI. And We have seen evidence of this because we work directly with a tool that does data science, right? So we have million users, and we have seen directly what matters a lot is understanding of the data, understanding of what questions to ask. When you get this massive data set, how do you slice it? How do you approach getting insights from it? All those skills that data scientists have are really, really valuable. How those get implemented in practice is going to change with AI, right? AI will help data scientists implement their analysis much quicker. It will help them take the idea and turn that into an analysis much, much faster. But the expertise where you have arbitrary data and how do you clean it? How do you slice it? How do you do different statistical methods, apply those methods on the data, get insights from it? How do you create dashboards? What dashboards are worth creating? Combining the business logic and those insights with how to approach a problem is going to stay. And that's true for every role. There's doctors who are worried whether AI will replace doctors. And, you know, it's the same thing there, which is human patients still want to interact with the human. And in many cases, the doctors will be able to use AI to come to a diagnosis much faster. But having that doctor human oversight is very, very important. In fact, it will speed up a doctor's job more than they can today. So I think similarly, we have seen evidence for data science and data analysis. In fact, one thing we have seen is that a lot of new folks getting into data science are able to get into the field now much faster as opposed to some of the folks that have spent decades in the field because they're able to ramp up on the different ways they can do data science without being really experts in coding or go through the coursework much, much faster. And we're always happy to support students that are learning data science. In fact, we're going to launch a certification soon so you can learn how to do data science in Julius very soon. And we're always out there to support the community.
That's super exciting. When is that launching?
DVD.
Okay. What is next for Julius? So I know you mentioned more use cases for people who are trying to break into data. What else are you trying to build?
So right now, in the next 6 months, a big part is scaling our systems and our infrastructure to keep up with the growth. We have been growing really fast, and we want to make sure that we are able to scale our systems more reliably so we can serve all the new users. A few things down the line are going to be dashboards in the future so you can prompt the AI with your task and explain in detail, and the AI will turn your data prompts into dashboards that you can then tweak and share. There's going to be more interactive visualizations. Juice is going to become a workspace where you can keep all your data, keep all your prompts, and reuse some of your previous prompts, teach the AI different skills. So memory is going to be a big part where you will be able to teach the AI skills about your data and have it remember those so that the next time you come back to it, you're able to reuse the things you've done in the past. Um, all this on top of it would be building more powerful environments. We think that you will be able to do multiple tasks in parallel as opposed to one task at a time. So let's say you get this data from a customer and you want to analyze it. You come up with a few different approaches and then you spin up a few different environments and try one approach in each environment and have it run in parallel and then have the AI come back to you with the outputs. And then you pick what direction to go into. We think that's the future where agents will do tasks for you asynchronously, where you'll be able to tell the AI different things and it will go execute on them in parallel and then come back to you with the outputs. The third thing is going to be report generation. So we heard from a lot of our users that they want to take the analysis and turn that into report that they can share and publish online, maybe publish on Kaggle or on their own portfolio. And we're going to make a lot of improvements on that area and support report generation on Julius. So there's a lot of really exciting things coming.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Thank you for sharing that with us. And also just your incredible journey. We can see how much of a well-rounded person you've become from a software engineer to CEO and founder today. I know we touched on the things that you gained working for yourself, but I know that there's also so much of you that you give up as part of your identity when you moved on from a typical 9 to 5. What are some of the things that you miss from corporate job? What did you have to give up?
Two things. One of them is I miss being able to shut my brain off at the end of the day and or on a weekend. And now I just can't do that. All I think about all day is Julius and how to make it bigger, make it simpler to use, get it to more users, and make their lives more easier with Julius. And that's all I think about. And it's even on the days when I try to shut my brain off at night, I can't. I really have to like be physically tired to fall asleep. And then the moment I wake up, all I think about is Julius. And while I really enjoy that, it's not like a torture for me at all. I really wonder, what was I doing with my free time before Julius? Like, what was I doing? So that is something that's been the case for the last year and a half. Is just constantly thinking about Julius all the time. The second thing is you definitely sacrifice a lot in terms of people who are close to you in your personal life. You're not able to spend as much time with them because you go to a wedding and turns out the morning of that wedding, your friend's wedding, there's like a big outage and you have to skip on all the planned activities and go figure out how to resolve the outage, how to respond to the customers that are upset, then figure out how do we scale the systems from there. Those are the things where the people who are close to you and really look forward to spending time with you, it really upsets them when those things happen. But I think that's like a sacrifice you have to make when you're working for yourself and building a company.
With all of those things in mind, would you ever go back to a corporate 9 to 5 environment?
I don't think so. Yeah. I can't do 9 to 5 again. I like not being able to shut my brain off sometimes. Like I'm at the gym working out and all I can think about is Julius. And being around people who are smarter than me and learning from them, whether they're like a backend engineer and they can do backend better than I can do it, or they're like a front engineer that can do front end better than I can do it. And just like being surrounded by those people and learning from them and learning from our users is great. And the best thing about startups is the highs are really good. You see stories like users teaching a class of 60 students are learning how to use your tool. And that's the only thing they learn in the class is kind of amazing. When you hear that, you're barely able to sleep at night and you can wait to wake up the next morning and work again. So I don't think I can go back.
I love that. What is one piece of advice that you would give to those people who might feel a little stuck in their corporate job, is considering potentially leaving, but maybe don't have the idea yet?
Yeah. My approach to it was to spend a lot of time of my like evenings and weekends trying to build certain skills that I wanted to building apps, launching them, understanding whether it works or not. And looking back, those skills as useful today. But what it did was it gave me the confidence to go do something on my own and build something on my own. And so take baby steps. Start nights and weekends, and then maybe take a 1 month vacation from work if you can, and like just go all in on the thing you want to work on, and see what it's like, and then sort of go from there. Ultimately, you will need to find people, like a support system that is also ambitious and is willing to support things. So I barely hang out with my friends that I used to hang out with 2 years ago because all they're doing is just like going to Tahoe on the weekends and going on a surfing trip and going on a skiing trip in the winter. But along the way, I found friends who were just as ambitious, even more ambitious, and they pushed me harder. And they're also working on things nights and weekends, and they're also working on their own ideas or making content or building a community. They're doing all these things that I guess back in school would count as extracurricular, but you're just like doing extracurricular stuff as an adult. You'd be surprised. 95% of the people don't even do that. They're just, just living life on autopilot And that doesn't have to mean like starting your own thing, but just finding that support system and a group of people, and you can do something with them. You can start a company with them. You can join a company that they've started and be super early, which basically just is about the same amount of work. Joining a company super early is just the same thing as starting it, and learn a lot and just have fun.
I love that. So finding right-minded people who can share similar interests and push you forward, take baby steps, do nights and weekends. And yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I have learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners have learned a lot as well. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me, Maggie.